Okay. All right. So welcome everybody. We are now recording. So again, to reiterate the mission of the user group, to train, educate, and connect data professionals who work with Microsoft Power BI at colleges and universities. And maybe we want to update this. I don't know, with colleges and universities, maybe is an appropriate language there rather than just at. But now I know, so I think it literally within the past hour and a half, maybe this morning, Power BI just released the July version. So I have no idea, Lakshmi, if you've been able to look at it at all. Yeah, probably not. But did you have anything prepared for us for the monthly brief at all you could share?
Unfortunately, no, because I did not see the article today morning. So probably next time I will show what's released in July.
I figured not. It was over lunchtime they released it. I said, it's not good timing. Um, so we'll have some more to cover with you guys and with everybody next time we meet. All right. So again, the August meetup, we're going to schedule that. It'll be another office hours event. But as I mentioned before, we're also going to have some additional deep dives into the PL300 and DP600.
Jen,
So look,
are you sharing your screen?
thought I was. Uh-oh. Did it stop? Yes.
Yeah, now we
Sorry.
see it.
You didn't miss much. I was just covering it. So the August meetup, again, office hours, and then future meetups, we're going to schedule those deep dives for PL300 and the DP600. And then again, we have a Slack channel. Can post the link in the chat to invite everybody to it. But please don't wait until we have these monthly events to be social. Reach out to us, ask us some questions, and we're happy to interact on the Slack channel. And then please, if you're interested in presenting, you want to share some knowledge with us, reach out to us as well. We can get you on the docket. And then again, after the meeting, there's going to be another email with links to future events, links to our YouTube channel that this meeting will be uploaded onto. All right, so now we're going to launch into our presentation. But right before we do this and launch into the content, we have a special guest, somebody from my team that actually presented here at this user group meeting back in August that recently passed her, PL 300. So I'm going to give her a clap there. So congratulations, Jen. I wanted Jen to share her experience, since it's very recent, around what she did, what she studied to prepare for the PL 300, and then to come out on the other end successful. So Jen, if you don't mind, share with us some of the information.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. So the primary thing I did to prepare for this exam was focus on the materials provided by Microsoft. So most of my preparation was free. So this was my home page, so to speak, for a couple of months. So this is the information for the PL300, the Power BI Data Analyst Associate, and I went through the course associated with the PL300, so the entire course. So this course has several learning paths, and every single one of these learning paths has a set of modules. So if we dive into one of these learning paths, for instance, the prepare data for analysis with Power BI, you'll notice there are 3 modules, and each module has several sections. So I went through each one of these learning paths. I created my own flashcards, and I focused on some of the exercises. So these exercises, they're associated with some of the modules. It's essentially a virtual desktop where you have access to Power BI, and then the exercises will walk you through a series of tasks that are related to the specific module. So if there wasn't something that I was doing in my day-to-day work or something that I found that was new and I wanted to get some hands-on experience, I was sure to perform the exercises associated with that module. So, spending a lot of time in this course and going through these learning paths. Now, in terms of the flashcards, I chose to use a digital tool, and I don't want to support any one specific tool, but I'll tell you what I used. I used Quizlet as my tool, and the reason I like these digital flashcards and these digital softwares for studying is that it often allows you to interact with the material in a variety of different ways. So for instance, you can use it like a traditional flashcard, but then it can also set up like a learning mode where you're matching, like you're presented with a grid of terms and definitions, and then you got to match them. So that's a completely different way of interacting with the material than you would with just traditional flashcards. And then often these softwares will track which questions questions you got right and which you got wrong, and surface the ones that you get wrong with more frequency than the ones that you got right. So I really loved that tool. I started out with the free version of it, and then I moved on to premium, and I just did a month to month so I could just use it while I was studying for the exam and then cancel when I was done. And I'm getting ready to gear up for the DP 600, so I'm going to use that tool again. So again, for me, that was Quizlet. I had a good experience with it, but there are plenty of other tools. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that I used that was all in the Microsoft Learn environment was a practice assessment. I was surprised how many times I took the practice assessment, and I found this to be a really useful tool. So I think there are 50 questions. You go through, you take the exam. When you finish up, you get a score, and then you can go through and see which questions you got right and which you got wrong. And any of the ones that I got wrong, I did a deep dive in, whether that was using AI or whether that was going into the Microsoft Learn material to learn more about it. But then you can take that assessment over and over again, and it's not always the same assessment. So some of the questions are recycled, but not all of them. So I felt like that was a really good tool. And then finally, leading up to actually taking the exam, I do recommend going in and checking out the exam sandbox. So this will tell you what question types to expect on the exam. It'll give you like a feel of a lay of the land, so to speak. So for instance, I learned that you can mark questions to be reviewed for later so that when you get to the end of your exam, you can go back to those questions and look them over before you submit everything. So yeah, before you take your exam, I think it's definitely worth your while to go in and demo the actual exam itself. So those are my tips for what I did, my experience for preparing for the PL 300. So best of luck to everyone that's planning on taking the exam. So I was excited to get my certification. So good luck to you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen, for sharing those insights. And another thing we wanted to share here is Microsoft actually provided a lot of these slides for us, and there's some good content here. And on that exam prep sort of subject, we wanted to walk through a couple things. The first thing in the chat, there was a mention of this. First thing is the vouchers, right? So this is part of data dates. You can request vouchers through these links right here, and we can provide those links to you as well. But you have to meet these criteria. So you have to watch 2 day-to-day sessions, complete 3 Microsoft Learn modules from this collection, which again, we can send these links out, agree to terms and conditions, and submit your form by August 10th. To apply for a 100% discount voucher for DP 600, and they're also looking to provide 50% discount vouchers for the PL 300 as well. If you cannot get a discounted voucher through this program, you may want to check to see if your institution or company or organization has discounted vouchers through credits, or if there's already another deal that they can get a 50% discount through there. So don't just upfront just pay the cost yourself. Always examine those avenues, right? So please be aware that these stipulations apply, though. So we'll send these links out. And that's why also, if you look at the chat, we're going to be scheduling these deep dive sessions before this August 10th date. So that way you can submit our sessions through the form. So that way you have attended those for your discounted vouchers. Okay. All right, so again, just some open Q&A. Again, questions here. This is the content that Microsoft provided to us. You might be asking, and if you're attending this, you're probably already interested, but why would you want to get certified, right? So here's some stats here that mention about data skills shortage and why it's important to, more important than ever probably, to be well-versed in data, right? Whether your role is data governance, Power BI report developing, engineering, anything, having the experience in data and being exposed to it is going to become increasingly important as we head toward maybe an AI first world. I don't know, but some sort of world that it does involve data in some way. And then again, how to prepare for exams. So Jen, she gave you her example. Some of the stuff that Microsoft tells you, use Microsoft Learn. There's a ton of content on Microsoft Learn if you haven't been on there. Pretty much everything you'll need to know is somehow accessible through Microsoft Learn, and as you'll see, you can actually access Microsoft Learn on the exams. So we'll get into that a little bit. Study, study, study. Much like every other exam, just study, right? You got to know what to study, and we can go over that. But studying is going to be important. Don't just walk into the exam expecting to pass right away. That's a recipe for failure, right? And then again, practice, right? So on these, if you go back and look at the recordings here, we cannot share these slides, but if you go back and look at the recordings, up at the top right hand, you'll see some of these shortened links. If you type these into your web browser, you'll be able to go to the specific websites that are mentioned as well. And so let's look at the study guide and practice test exam sandbox, right? So you can click on this. Exam is an open book, right? So you can look at Microsoft Learn in the exam. This is incredibly helpul to go through some of the questions and answers that you may not have memorized, right? I know, James, when we were talking, I don't know if this is the time now, but if you mind sharing what you would use Microsoft Learn for versus some of the things you should know, right?
Yeah. So there's things that are like just rote memorization that it's kind of difficult to remember all the things just in your head. For instance, I never remember what all of the permission, the workspace roles are in Power BI, like what you get if you're a contributor versus a member. And so I don't, because the Microsoft Learn is available in the exam, I just say, all right, that's one of the ones I'm going to look up every time, and so I do that. But they don't give you enough time to look up every question. So you basically want to save that for the ones where you're not going to know it, and try to use it only in cases where you have no idea and that that guessing would be likely to get the wrong answer. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Nice. Awesome. So then, again, use Microsoft Learn during the exam. Of course, use that. Same languages in the exam as above. So again, just going through some of these slides, it's telling you some important information. Tips and tricks on exam day. So these are multiple slides. I'm going to just push through all of these so that way we can walk through the entire sort of timeline that they give us. All right. So this is what will happen. Your proctor will verify your identity. Also, if you're doing this remotely, and James mentioned this before in a previous chat, if you're doing this remotely, do not, get on your phone. You will get chastised for that. You potentially disqualified for it. Do not get on your phone. Always make sure you're making as much eye contact with the person, the proctor, through there. Do not look around the room. You could have a spy, behind your monitor feeding you answers, right? You never know. You can have things written down. So just make sure that you're attentive to those rules and that you don't get disqualified. Even if you are doing everything honestly, calm your nerves. Make sure that you're going by the book and just looking at the proctor, following their lead.
The rules about the room that you can do the exam in are very, very strict. So if you have the option to use a laptop and bring it to a very, very empty room where there's almost nothing around, because they're going to have you take a picture in every direction from where you're sitting, left, right, front, back, and center, and everything. And they're going to make sure that there's nothing around you that could be used as notes or anything like that. So yeah. The way I've been taking the exam the last few times is I just take it into a bathroom in my house where there's nothing there for and so there's I'm sitting at like a metal chair and with the laptop on the counter, and that's it. So whatever it takes to create a testing environment where you can prove that you're not don't have any supplementary materials nearby. So
yep. Read the shampoo bottle, the ingredients, right? While you're there. Not related to Power BI, I swear. So then again, the proctor will unlock your exam. Then the title screen with the exam name will come up. You agree to an NDA. Instructions. Again, read these. You can be the smartest person in Power BI, but hey, if you don't read the instructions, you won't get the certification, right? So just read those. Complete the skills survey. Take the exam. This should probably be bigger than just, this box should be not the same size as everybody else. This is probably the biggest piece, but take the exam, review any questions that you want to revisit, and then you submit the exam for scoring. So you have time in the exam. Do not rush through every single one. It's not a race to the finish, right? Don't be the rabbit and the tortoise and the hare, or the hare, I should say, and the tortoise and the hare. Make sure you're taking your time and answering things correctly, right? And you're confident with everything. Then you'll receive your result, and I believe it's 70%, right? You have to get a 70 or above. Yep. And then you're good.
Nobody will ask you. Well, people might ask you, but you won't be judged if you get a 75 versus somebody who gets a 95.
Yep.
You both have the same certification, right? So
Yep.
be happy
Yep.
with that.
If you get a 75, that means you studied 5% too hard.
Yep. So yeah, so before we move on, and then after this, I think we're going to have, so Lakshmi, I'd like for you to go through a couple things after we go through this. Any questions from anybody? We can open this up to Q&A. Is there anything that we've covered so far that you want more details around, or anything for us to answer? No? Okay. All right. So here's some tips, right, for taking the test remotely, which I'm imagining many of you will. So just go through here. I won't read through every single one. The VPNs are not allowed. Always have your camera on. That's a big thing as well. Yeah. Do not miss the reschedule window.
They're also going to make you install special Pearson VUE software on your machine. So if you're using your work computer and your organization doesn't allow you admin rights, then you're probably going to have to use a personal computer for that for the exam. Just putting that out there.
Yep. All right, and then a lot of this, some more tips and tricks, just high-level tips and tricks. Practice, 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 practice. So go through there. All right, the next slides are related to the PL300. So we're going to do a brief overview of some of the information related to the PL300. Lakshmi is going to walk us through some of this. She's great at this. If you haven't, again, I'll follow her on LinkedIn. Follow her and James on LinkedIn. They post regularly about content. They're hosting. They're presenting everywhere. Please follow them. They'll get you on the right path. So, Lakshmi, if you want, do you want me to share, or would you like to share different content, the slides you want to share?
I mean, you can keep sharing, no issues
Okay.
about that. I'll just open it on my side so that I don't forget things. So
Yeah,
I think
perfect.
it's we have a lot of content on the PL300 slide. So I think I'm not going to go too much into, I would say, the content part. Just want to tell you what PL300 is. We can do a deep dive when we get in. So for people who are wondering what is PL300, basically Power BI data analyst certification. If you work with Power BI every single day, you must have the certification. It did help me switch jobs. And now if you're looking for jobs, if you are applying for a Power BI data analyst job, they are asking for this particular exam. And like Jeff said, getting 75% or getting 90% doesn't matter, but just give it an attempt. You should be able to clear it. And also for people who are working in Power BI, even if you worked for say 1 year and you know Power BI basics inside out, you will be able to easily crack these exams. uh, I gave my exam, I think 3 years back. And some of the important things that I want to mention is they are very picky about the topics that they want to question you about. And like Jen mentioned, most of the questions are from the practice exams or the practice assessments that are already present in Microsoft Learn. Quick example, say you have roles and workspaces in Power BI, right? There are around 4 to 5 questions on the same topic, roles and workspaces. So if they're going to ask you about the viewer role, there are, after a couple of questions, you will find like questions on the contributor role. So my suggestion for this is, what I do is I have like a small table which I have prepared for myself. I write down notes just before the exam. I take a glimpse of it, and then it's pretty much easy to understand. So even for every topic, they have some certain topics that they want you to focus on. The way you can find it is attempt your practice exams. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Jeff.
Yep.
Okay, coming to, so the percentages that you see on the screen keeps changing on a yearly basis. I'm not sure if this is updated one, but currently if you see preparing the data, modeling the data, visualizing and analyzing the data have almost the equal priorities, equal percentage. And like I said, I did get questions on bookmarks. I got questions on analytical pain, which is like, none of us use it, but they do ask you questions on it. So make sure that you actually study according to the percentages. Don't go too much into managing and securing your Power BI. If you already work with Power BI, those questions should be easy for you to handle. One more quick tip right here, specifically for me. I'm a visualization person, right? So when I do visualizations, I don't have to remember which tab has what. If I'm looking for field parameters, I just go keep clicking on all the tabs until I find that particular section. But be very careful, because in this exam there are questions where, like, I had a question where it was simply, which tab do you find field parameters? And at that moment, my mind went out, because I cannot open Power BI and click, right? So little bit of theoretical knowledge is needed. And like Jen mentioned, Microsoft Learn is the best place to go. So now I will never forget where field parameters is, because I missed it on my exam. Okay, next question, next slide.
Yep. So
Okay,
prepare data.
talking about preparing data, very, very simple concept where this is going to ask you about how you can get your data, how you can profile or clean your data, transform and load the data. Profile and cleaning data, very, very important. You will have lots of questions, at least 3 to 4 questions on column profile, column distribution. I still don't remember it, but I have Microsoft Learn. I just open Microsoft Learn. I do a control F. It worked for me like 3 years back. Not sure if it works now. If people you took the exams recently, please let us know in the comments. So Control F does work on the Microsoft Learn. I just do Control F, find out column profile or column distribution, and I quickly answer those questions. So quick tip right there. Next slide, please.
Yep.
Okay. We could skip these, just simple information about, this is very important slide. Like I said, have all these in table formats. Choosing appropriate storage mode. The questions are not going to be very direct. I had questions where they just asked me that I have a I have data. I want the data to only live in the source system. I do not want it to be on my Power BI. I don't want it to get downloaded in Power BI every time. What is the storage mode you will use? So you will have indirect questions on this. You're not going to have direct questions like, is import mode fast or slow? So you have to be very, very careful about answering these questions. And there is a case study that comes up. So my case study did have a question on this particular topic, the storage mode. Quick information about case study. So what they do is they describe an entire scenario. The worst part about this is the scenario is in 2 pages. So you will have to go back and forth the scenarios. And I had, I think, 4 to 5 questions based on the scenarios. And for me, majority of my time went in the case study, because I had to go back and forth the scenarios. Then I got a very good tip from one of my friend who said that look into the questions first and then go to the scenario. So once you try to understand what the question is about, get into the scenario, read it like a story, and you will be able to answer most of it. So that's a quick tip. So very important slide. Keep this entire thing in your mind. Okay, next slide. Configuring data connections. We can, I think it's there on the next slide too. We can move on. Okay, so profiling, this is what I was talking about. So you see on the top, we have column quality. So 3 types of profiling: column quality, column distribution, column profile. Make sure you understand what the differences are, because it's very important. And one more important quick tip: if you read through Microsoft Learn, the language, the wordings that you see are exactly what you're going to see on your exam. If your definition says distinct and unique values, the exam will also have the same words, distinct and unique values. So keep that in mind. Even if you work with Power BI for 4 to 5 years, make sure you go ahead and just read it like a storybook, so that you know what are the words you could expect. Okay, next slide. Cleaning and fixing data issues, I didn't have much questions on that, but again, like column profiling, they did ask me like, if I have to find out the number of unique values in my column, how do I do that? And the answer like was just column profiling, column distribution, or your column qualities. Next question. We will go through all of this in deep when we have our deep dive sessions. Shaping your data, we can skip this. We could skip this too.
Yep.
I'm not sure what these are. Combining and organizing queries. I did have a couple of questions on this. Important thing, I didn't have multiple choice questions. I had to drag and drop the steps. So there are a couple of questions where they ask you to list out the steps in an order. So you will have options on the side. You have to drag and drop. I did have questions on how you could merge queries. And trust me, doing it on a system on Power BI is much easier than reading out the steps and arranging those. So if you want to get those questions out of your way quickly, the best way is use Microsoft Learn. That way, once you read through the steps, when you look at the steps, it will be easy for you to relay. Yep. Next slide. Combining, yeah, the same. Again,
Same.
steps. They just go to ask you the steps here. Loading and configuring your data. I had questions about relationships, one to many, many to one. What are the best, what scenarios you're supposed to use? What are the advantages of enabling or disabling query load? I think it comes up in your optimize Power BI performance slide. We can skip through this. Just a couple of steps here. Performance recommendations. I did have questions on this. What are the ways you can make sure that your reports are performing well? These are the steps. Check your data types, keep only the necessary columns, reduce your cardinality, disable query load, and use parameters. These words need to be just as it is, because in the questions you are going to get the same MCQ. So you will have all of, I had like three of them, and then I had all of the above. So the simple, I knew that I had to click all of the above. So that's pretty much about it. Next, data modeling. In data modeling, they had questions on DAX. Not too many questions on DAX. I hardly got one or two. Optimizing model performance was important, and it also covers like this how you can design and implement a data model. That by that I mean like they did ask me questions about star schema, snowflake, which is the best, like simple questions on that. Yep, we can get into the slide. Like I said, like star schema, when you studying through it, make sure you understand what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, when to use what. That's very important. Yep, next slide, please. Defined relationships. Like I said, they did ask me questions on like when do you have, like I had images, like literally two images, and told me like if I had to do a one to many or many to many, what are my primary keys? So make sure you understand what each of these term means. And like I said, the question doesn't have to be really textual. You can directly have two images and a single line question. So make sure you pay attention to those. And one more important thing is when you're reading, like when you have the question on the screen, don't read it out loud. In the sense, if the
Mhm.
proctor sees you moving your mouth, that's going to be like they're going to stop you then and there. Sometimes you might even they might even just close your exam. So because I have a habit of reading out questions, and it's very hard for me to keep my mouth shut during the exam. So quick tip right there for everyone. Yep, relationships. Next questions is, oh yeah, date table is a good practice to switch off the date auto time intelligence. What does the like once you do that, it's recommended that you have a common date table. They I didn't have any questions on this, but I did have a question on auto time intelligence. And I had a very silly question where they asked me, where do I find that particular setting? So they didn't even ask me what that what that was. I had a question where they asked me, where can you find it? But thankfully I knew it was in the settings. But yeah, uh, that was about the time intelligence. Next question, please. Okay.
Oops. Dax.
Yep. DAX, like I said, not don't worry too much about DAX. You don't have to spend three like complete days reading about DAX. If you know the basics, you're good to go. First, you should know what is the abbreviation of DAX, data analysis expressions. What is it? Just a quick, similar to a programming language where you can use to create your calculated columns, measures, even your custom tables. And one more question that I had was like not a question, but I remember that keep in mind that DAX is basically a collection of functions, operators, and constants. So remember, like, stress on the words. I am stressing on the words because those were the words that were in my exam. So you need to know that it's a collection of function, operators, and constants. Keep that in mind. And then they did ask me like if I have to create a what is the difference between a calculated column and a measure. So I had like four lines and I had to differentiate that. So just Keep in mind that measures or some get calculated on the fly. Calculated columns get calculated for each of the row. So if you work with Power BI, make sure that those basics, you're clear with those basics. Yep. We can go to the next. Calculate function is okay. Time intelligence functions, I didn't pretty much have any question on this, but it's important for you to know what are the DAX functions. So if you go to Microsoft Learn, you will find, I think, a page where they tell you that if you want to know more about the DAX functions related to time intelligence, this is the list. If you want to know more about the textual DAX functions, here is a list. So make sure you have those lists in mind. Those really help you knock down questions on DAX. You will not be asked to write complicated DAX solutions. I did have a question where I had a DAX, I had a scenario mentioned, I had a DAX statement which had blanks in it. And then I had to pick, drag and drop the appropriate operator or the constant or like the function. So make sure that you know the syntax, you're aware of the syntax. Also, quick information, if you have any questions on DAX, I am very, very sure that you are going to have some context in the description. So once you see the DAX, do not just start answering the DAX question. Make sure you go read and find out if there is any context given to you on the question. Next slide, please. Just a quick example. Calculation groups. No worries. Calculation groups. Just I didn't have any questions on that, but it's really important. Like, just get to know what are the advantages, or when do you have to use those calculation groups. Next slide, please. Transforming and loading data. Again, like we already covered this. You need to know what is the right storage mode. Nothing pretty much from here. Next slide, please. We can skip this. We will cover all this in depth when we have our depth section. I will actually open Power BI. I can quickly show you where to find what. Yeah, so this is important. Like I was asked like, how do I optimize my Power BI report? And like the two best examples are using Performance Analyzer, using my DAX query view. They did ask me like if there are any external tools available. You have a couple. I'm not sure they're going to ask you again because now there are a lot of tools available. Back then it was like one or two tools. So this, you need to know what these are. You don't need to have in-depth knowledge about the external tools, but just know the names. Okay. Okay, the couple of screenshots here. Visualize and analyze, my favorite part. Let's proceed. So, quick here is like just they will ask you questions about visuals. Like quick example, like if I want to, what visual do I use if I want to show a part of a whole? So it's a pie chart or a donut chart. Those should be pretty easy to answer. Things that are covered under this topic are how do you create reports, how can you enhance your reports, what are the storytelling elements that you could use, how can you identify patterns and trends. Now, one important thing, do not skip this section while you're studying, because there are a couple of things, like I said, reference lines, there is something called a trend line, there are ratio lines, symmetries that we do not really use on a daily visualization. But you will find questions on forecasting, you will find questions on confidence levels when you are answering. So make sure, even though you visualize on a daily basis, go through the Microsoft Learn. That's really important. Yep. Next slide, please. Creating reports. How do you choose the right visual? How do you improve clarity, titles, labels, colors, avoid clutter? Just a quick tip. Next slide. How can you convert, like I did have a question that if I have a normal table and I want to add some color formatting to it, how do I do it? And in the answers I had this option, conditional formatting. So conditional formatting. Now in Power BI, the way we speak is I use FX. So you need to know FX means conditional formatting. Only then you will be able to answer the question. So that's why I say, like, theoretically you need to know a couple of things. Next question. Themes and conditional formatting. I did have a question on this. So simple, whenever we create Power BI reports, always suggested to have themes. Themes help you be consistent with your branding. You can edit your themes, you can customize your themes, you can upload your themes, send it over to someone else, and then they can use the same theme. I was asked a question about I had a question on accessibility where I had an option. If does Power BI offer you like accessible themes? And the answer to that is yes. So make sure that you remember that Power BI also suggests you a couple of themes that are accessible. Next slide.
In one note, I just want to pass along real quick, Lakshmi, on themes is if we look at the July 26 updates for Power BI, there are some updates to the modern theme template you can opt into. And so with that being said, a lot of stuff that's being covered here a year from now, there's going to be some nuance here, some differences. So just always stay up to date, right, with the monthly updates that are coming forward.
Perfect. I will work on that and show everyone the new updates in August. Perfect.
Yeah.
Themes and conditional formatting. Okay. This slicing, filtering, page configurations. I had a question on what are the different types of filtering that you could do. So don't get confused between slicing and filtering. Make sure you know the difference. Slicing is when I use the slicer visual that is available with me. Click on a data, my entire report gets filtered, gets sliced according to my slicer. Filtering, you have report level filters, page level filters, visual level filters, cross filters. There are different type of scopes, different type of filters. You need to know what each does. Very important. And yeah, that's page configuration about the page. How can you change the size? You can change the background, the wallpaper, the layouts. Quick tip right here is the screenshot that you will see on your Microsoft Learn exams are Microsoft exams are exactly what you will see on your Microsoft Learn. So if Microsoft Learn has an older version of Power BI and you are used to using the newer version or any preview version, you will not be able to see the same layout. So that's why I highly recommend, even if you are an expert in Power BI, please make sure you go to Microsoft Learn, because this you will be shocked to see that you will be like, oh my God, I've never seen this pane. But then this did exist like 3 to 4 years back. So quick tip right there. Okay, next slide. Talking about visual calculations and paginated reports, I did have a question about difference. I didn't have any question on visual calcs. I think visual calc wasn't released then, but then I've heard that people did have questions about difference in visual calculations and measures. So make sure you are very clear that visual calculations apply to, like, you're basically applying DAX to just a particular visual, lies within the scope of the visual. Measures are not the same. You can use it anywhere. Next, coming to paginated reports, really important to know that what are just so like don't need to go too in depth to paginated reports. You just need to know that paginated reports help you build like pixel perfect printable. So the word here is printable, printing. Whenever you see paginated reports, just go through your options. Whenever you find the word print, that's your answer. Quick tip right here: if you see a question, you have no idea about what that topic is, what I do is use the process of elimination. I go through the options, just strike out which I think is not at all possible, and then ultimately, by God's grace, I always have one left, and I just go for it. So use method of elimination when you have no idea about the topic, or you're like, I have no idea what theoretically it means. Perfect. Next slide. How do you enhance reports for storytelling is using Power BI features, bookmarks, tooltips, interactions. Like I said, bookmarks, we know how to use bookmarks. When I have Power BI open in front of me, it's very easy for me to do it. But theoretically, it's a little complicated when they put it out in words. Even for bookmarks, I had a question where I had to mark in the steps. So basically, I had to drag and drop my steps, and it was time consuming and very confusing. At that moment, make sure you quickly open your Microsoft Learn. Whenever you have those steps, I think that's the best way. Open your Microsoft Learn on your Pearson window, do a Control F, find bookmarks, and then quickly just match it. It should be easy. Tooltips, you need to know that there are two types of tooltips. One, you can add a tooltip page, a custom tooltip page, or you can also have default tooltips. Now, I think just last month or last month, there were new updates on the tooltips. I'm not sure if they will be on the exam, but again, quick information is you can now add entire sentences at tooltips. I could probably show you a demo next time during my monthly brief. And then coming to interactions, very, very important. This is something that we ignore. We need to know that there is an option called edit interaction where you can edit how visuals interact between each other. Now, there are 3 types of interaction: no interaction, cross highlighting, cross filtering. So you really need to know what cross highlighting does, what cross filtering does, and how you can completely stop the interactions. And I can show you a quick demo during when I do like a deep dive on these topics. Next slide, please. Coming to navigation and sorting, mostly navigation is they want to make sure you know that you can add individual buttons for page navigation, or you can use something called page navigators. You have bookmark navigators as well. I didn't pretty much get any question on this. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Accessibility, like I said, I did have a question on accessibility. Need to know inbuilt features in accessibility are alternative text. For every visual, you can add an alternative text. Next is a tab order. When people use the tab on their keyboards, what is the order you want them to see the visuals in? You could easily set that in the tab order section in the selection pane. Next comes the contrast. When using colors, make sure you have a good contrast between colors. The question that I got for accessibility was very simple. Like I was just given like, what are the inbuilt features of accessibility? I had alternative text, tab orders, I had themes, and then I had all of the above. I just had to click all of the above. Next slide, please. Next, identifying patterns and trends. So again, you need to know what are the type of analysis you could do. Like you can do exploratory analysis. Now, what the screenshot that you see on the screen is something that none of us do. I think most of us do not do, but they did ask questions on this. Is Power BI has this feature where it helps you find what is the outlier or what is the distribution like. How the way you do that is do a right click on the visual, you have analyze, and then it's just going to give you a quick analysis based on the data that you have. So it's not going to use domain knowledge anywhere. It's just going to use the data that you have and give you a quick analysis on it. There is something called bins. So you can create bins, you can create clusters, you can create groups. All of these are inbuilt features of Power BI that help you do exploratory analysis. I will show you quick demos when I do a deep dive. Next slide, please, is AI visuals and forecasting. Like I mentioned, key influences, I think is going away soon. I'm not sure about that though. But I did have questions on reference lines and forecasting lines. When you do a forecasting, right, there are a couple of things that you need to set. One of them is a confidence level, and then I had some outlier. There are 2 to 3 things that you need to set in order to get a forecasting line. So now you need to know what are the 2 to 3 things. So make sure you go through the Microsoft Learn. Next slide, please. Outliers and anomalies, like I said, like the trend line that you see, the dotted line that you see, the gray part that you see are basically your confidence intervals. Yeah, pretty much. And they just ask you like, why do you need to use these? Is just to detect what are the outliers or what are anomalies. The first screenshot that you see is basically the forecasting. So the blue line is your current data, and the black line that you see is your forecasted data. Just information there. And then we can move on to the next slide. Managing and securing is, I think, like the least percentage, 15 to 20%. Just need to know how you can manage and how you can create workspaces. What are the assets that you need? How can you secure and govern Power BI items, mostly related to roles, your RLS, your OLS? You'll have questions on those. Next slide, please. So quick information on workspaces, like they will ask you, what are workspaces? What are the building blocks of your workspaces? You need to know what an app is. In workspaces, like I think we have more slides, like there's a premium workspace. You need to know the types of works, the levels of workspace. That's important. Next slide, please. Quick information about roles. Like I told you, I was asked questions on viewer role. What is a contributor role? Just use Microsoft Learn to quickly make sure that you answer the right question. Next slide, please. Managing items in a workspace. I don't remember getting any questions on it, but you need to know like what are the how can you manage permissions at an item level. And yeah, that's pretty much about this slide. Next slide, please. Understanding distribution methods, like if you have a Power BI report or a Power BI workspace, what are the different ways you could distribute it? You can share reports and dashboards directly by links. You can create an app with all the reports that you want to show and publish it. You can embed your reports in other platforms, or you can even set up subscription alerts. I did have questions on subscriptions and alerts. Like subscriptions basically let users receive reports on a schedule. Like you put in a date, put in a schedule, and then you get it. Alerts basically notify the user when there's a, like, basically when, like, say data crosses a threshold. So you really need to know the difference between like subscriptions and alerts. I think I had a scenario based question on subscription and alerts. Now, since I knew the definition of both of them, it was easy for me to answer that question. Next, please. Next is endorsing and automating. So endorsements, what is endorsements? Is basically Power BI will allow you to promote or like basically certify a couple of content. Promoted content is basically recommended by teams, and your certified content is something that is say approved by the governance team. So you need to know the difference between what is the promoted content, what is the certified content. Endorsements I mentioned. Then gateways, you need to know what your gateways. So these gateways are required when your sources are like on premises, like you have a SQL database behind a firewall. So you need to know that what gateway does. It acts like a bridge between basically your Power BI and your Power BI in the cloud and your local data. I don't remember having any questions on that, but you really need to know. You need to know what the term gateway means. Next, coming to monitor and managing your scheduled refreshes. What was the topic? Yeah, so like you need to know what are scheduled refreshes. You can keep your data current. You don't need to be manually always updating. You can configure your refresh frequency. You can set your time zones. That's important. So you need to know what scheduled refreshes are. Yep, next slide, please. Securing and governing Power BI items. Okay, we can proceed. Like again, like I said, you need to know what different workspace roles are, what are their permission levels, what are the roles, what are the responsibilities related to each and every role. We can move on. When you have item level access, how do you do that? Again, all this is demo. I can basically show the demo when I do it. Next slide, please. When you have a semantic model, you can control who connects to the data set. You can set either you can do like a people in your entire organization, or you can have separate security groups and make sure only they can access. I can show more via the demo. I don't remember getting any questions on this though. Next slide, a very important slide. RLS stands for row level security. Basically lets you restrict what the users see based on your identity. So say if you're an HR department, you will only be able to see HR data, so and so. There is something called OLS. I'm not sure if they cover it. So yeah, I don't think they have that slide. So you need to know OLS, object level security. Make sure you know what the difference between RLS and OLS are. Next slide, please. Next is how do you protect your data? So you have something called sensitivity labels. Basically, they help you. You can classify your data and add labels and protect your Power BI content that way. You can label your reports, your dashboards, and even your data sets. And I think the labels confidential, public, there's something else which I don't remember. So based on your organization policy, you can set those particular labels. And then for this particular exam, you just need to know how you can apply and manage those sensitivity labels. Because I did have a question on sensitivity labels. You can do it in Power BI desktop as well as you can do it on service. When I did not know we could do it in Power BI desktop. So make sure you're aware of that. And next slide, please. And that's pretty much it. I will do a deep dive. I have lots of tables, visuals that I can share with all of you. And over to you, James.
Oh boy. I'm gonna request remote control here so I can.
Yep.
All right. So not a lot of time left here. I do have a hard stop in 8 minutes here, so I'm going to try to get as far as I can here before I have to drop, and I might have to pass the baton to one of the other hosts here. But just as a preface here, the DP600 is kind of sort of straddling the line between the PL300 and the DP700. It is not all Power BI and it's not all Fabric. It's a little bit of both. And so I feel like if you've already got the PL300, this is the next step. If you don't have the PL300, but you're already kind of trying to lean into Fabric a little more, this might be a good first exam for you. I will say that it touches less on Power BI as a result of needing to touch more on the Fabric side of things. And so, you would need to know a little bit less of the very nitty-gritty specifics of Power BI, but more of things like, Kusto query language and stuff like that you would never even cover in the PL300. So it is very much a trade-off. Going forward here, let's see, I'm clicking, but nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening.
Okay, well, next slide, I guess.
Yep.
So, yeah, we can keep going here. All right. So, yeah, this is more basically talking about how Fabric is sort of bringing together all of the stuff that used to be sort of on the Azure side of things, the ETL, bringing data in and processing it and storing it. All that used to be sort of outside of Power BI. Now you can have SQL databases, you can have data warehouse, data lakehouse, you can do data science, machine learning, real-time intelligence. All of it can be done in Fabric now, and and this exam touches on some of that stuff at I guess a kind of a surface level. We'll keep going here. And yeah, and then of course the underlying sort of thing that ties it all together is the One Lake, which is the storage mechanism where all the data is stored there. And so if you store data in a data lake house, it's actually being stored in a thing called One Lake, where it's just being stored as files. And you can even access it kind of like OneDrive. You can install the One Lake Explorer on your computer and be able to look at those files. So it's really neat that all this stuff that they set up on the in Fabric is really just using the same underlying storage mechanisms. It makes it a lot easier to build solutions that kind of bridge between multiple aspects of the Fabric platform. Yeah, One Lake to rule them all. That's great. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, the data storage in Fabric, talking about basically how the workspaces end up kind of the workspaces and the lake houses and warehouses, they sort of determine where the data is stored, and of course the access to that data is gated the same way that you would gate access to data in Power BI, where access at the workspace level sort of overrides anything, any access that you granted at something at a more granular scale. So somebody who has access to a workspace will automatically get access to everything that's inside that workspace, regardless of whether they have permission on the individual items. But you can, of course, grant people access to individual items without granting them access to the entire rest of the workspace. So kind of keep that in mind. Let's keep going. All right. This is actually the idea of a lake house is basically you're using Python, PySpark notebooks to import and transform the data, whereas a warehouse you're using more T-SQL. So this kind of depends on the background of the person who's doing the work. If you're more comfortable in SQL, you can write your ETL pipelines in T-SQL. A lot of people are doing those things in PySpark notebooks. So basically, you end up with kind of the same result is a database that you can then hook up your semantic models to. One thing that they've added recently, I guess somewhat recently at this point, is you can actually have just a regular SQL database, not even just a warehouse or a lake house, just a regular old SQL database that can be the backend for an application. For instance, if you've got, say, Power Apps and it needs a SQL database on the back end for real time, basically as what do they call it, transactional database, where it's keeping track of every single time that somebody makes a change to their account, immediately show those changes so that there's no refresh. SQL now is available as a feature in Fabric, so you don't need to worry about, oh, okay, now we got to spin up an extra SQL server in Azure or on-prem or whatever. You can just do it right there in your Fabric instance as well. So let's keep going. And we basically already talked about that. We can keep going here. Preparing data in Fabric. So yeah, there's multiple ways, as I mentioned, to prepare your data, get, transform, and explore in Fabric. If you're accustomed to using data flows, which is basically the Power Query experience, there's a way to do that in Fabric. You can use data flows Gen 2, and that essentially allows you to get the data out from wherever it's coming from, and then you can tell it, go dump it in this lakehouse over here. So that's a really nice thing to have. Notebooks, as I mentioned, are basically just written in PySpark, where it's Python, but it's using the Spark underlying engine for doing the data imports and the transformations. Pipelines are something a little bit more akin to, if you've ever used Azure Data Factory. It's sort of it's a graphical a representation of your data import and transformation steps, where you actually see each individual component of the pipeline kind of in a first this goes, then there's an arrow that comes out from this one and goes to that one, and you can even have conditional things that says, okay, if this fails, do this, but if it succeeds, go down this. And so that's what pipelines look like. Shortcuts are essentially where instead of having to import a table from somewhere else, if that table is compatible with shortcuts, you can just say, well, just go ahead and link to that table over there. Just leave it where it is. And then when someone wants to query that table, just have it query that, have it shortcut to that place over there. It's kind of like a shortcut in Windows when you make a shortcut and you put that icon on your desktop. Well, that's about as much time as I have. So over to one of you all. I'm sorry I couldn't stick around, but hopefully I'll see some of you at the DP600. We'll be doing one of these where we do a more in-depth session on the DP600 specifically. So hopefully I'll see some of you there.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll go through the slides. Let me just say, I am not an expert when it comes to Fabric and DP600. That is James's area, but we'll share this information with you. And like he said, he'll be diving in much more in depth to this once we have that. But I do want to share this with everybody that can stay, the information that we do have. So, all right, the next slide will be about querying and analyzing data. So within the Fabric platform, you can actually query your data with SQL, KQL, or DAX, or within notebooks. So if you're comfortable with Python, using a PySpark notebook, you can query the data, but also visualize it right within that same notebook as well. So if you're familiar with Databricks, I know that's a competitor to Fabric, but if you're familiar with Databricks, which a lot of people are, that's what I like in these types of things too, right? So the power of using a notebook that can have multiple languages within it, it's really great, right? So you can start using Python maybe for statistics, and then if you're comfortable querying data with SQL within the same notebook, you can do that. So that's one way you can utilize Fabric there. Implement and manage semantic models. So again, semantic models are present within the Fabric platform as well. So much of the same stuff that Lakshmi covered earlier, maybe RLS, different things, relationships, everything as it relates to data modeling within a semantic model apply here as well. So with storage, all right, so import direct query, and then there's one more, right, because we're talking about Fabric, direct lake. We haven't done this internally within Miami. I've read a lot about it. I want to do this, but I know there was some chatter in the chat around direct query versus import. Right within the University of Miami, a lot of the practices we practice are around direct query of our SQL server, because we have secure join tables, and there's a lot of rules that go along with it. However, we've talked with Microsoft about going over to direct lake, because apparently some of the secure join table and the logic that we have behind those views can be implemented with direct lake, and there's a lot better performance as compared to direct query within SQL Server. So there's other things related to direct lake connections as well, because you can utilize the Fabric platform to update your tables and different sources within the direct lake as well. So there's that. And then again, optimizing semantic models. So much of the same applies to Power BI as well. So like we say, include necessary tables, rows, and columns only. That rule applies not just to Power BI. It applies to really anything as it relates to data management. Don't store anything you don't really need per se, because it'll just take up more information. James in the chat also linked to incremental refresh as well for partitioning to avoid loading unnecessary data. I think one thing, I was just talking to a friend of mine. He was implementing something in Power BI. He's learning Power BI, and there are daily snapshots he was loading within Power Query going back 4.5 years. And so every time he would refresh his model, he'd refresh the entire thing. I said, hey, look at incremental refresh. You don't need to refresh something that happened 4.5 years ago, right? It didn't change. That's a snapshot. Only update the necessary data. So if you're not familiar with that, I would recommend looking into that. And that's something we can cover at the deep dive as well. But yeah, in query folding, again, this is happens with Power BI. Look up the benefits of query folding especially if you have a direct query connection as well. Your performance should be better, and then some operations within Power Query or again on the Fabric platform won't be available unless your query folds. So make sure you look into that. Maintain an analytics solution in Fabric. So this is about maintaining it. So you've built it, right? You've built a pipeline. You've built these tables out. How do you maintain it? And so again, data security within Fabric. A lot of the concepts are the same within Power BI, but there are certain things that are different, right? So like one lake data access controls. If you have security groups, you can utilize those. Granular permissions. Not too familiar with that, but we can dive into that a little more. But then workspace roles. Some of these are a little different as well as within Fabric, but be sure to tune in the DP600 when we have that. Security at the semantic model layer. Use fewer well-designed semantic models and roles. Use principal names. So if you're familiar with the row level security, and as Lakshmi mentioned, OLS, the object level security roles within Power BI, a lot of the same principles apply here. The username and user principal name, some of those really apply for a lot of the dynamic security you can surface for your individual users once they log into that report. But if you have that row level security, that role established within that semantic model, and it say uses the username, right? If your username is in this, then you have this, else blah, 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 going through that logic, you can really start to design dynamic security across your different reports and semantic models, not just based on Entra security roles, right? These security groups that you've created. You can do it based on the user as well. Sometimes the maintenance can be a little hairy there for that, but make sure that you're aware of you can do that, especially if these reports are supposed to go to leadership. Sometimes leadership have very custom roles. They have very custom questions that they want answered. And if they say, no, I'm the only one should have access to this within this report, everybody else can have access to X, Y, Z, I want A, B, C. This is where you can utilize some of those different rules. Managing your assets through the dev lifecycle. So within Fabric, everything is here. CI/CD within Fabric. You can if you have Azure DevOps, you can do some of that for version control. You can connect your different workspaces to DevOps for the version control through Git. Deployment pipelines. This is something that I don't see Jen on still. Jen might have had to leave, but we utilize deployment pipelines within Power BI, so similar within Fabric. But the beauty of deployment pipelines is we have a test, dev, and a prod workspace for some of our users, and we will go in. We'll have our dev. We'll develop all in there. A lot of our messy stuff's in dev, right? That's stuff that we're just testing out, developing in. We'll move it to test automatically through the same UI. It'll just go to the test, equipped with version control, and then we'll tell the users, hey, this is available to test. Please give her feedback, whatever it is. Here's your testing scenarios. This is what you should be able to do. And then they'll tell us, hey, this looks good. Boom. We'll deploy it to prod, all within the same UI within Power BI. It's a wonderful feature. It's something that if you're not familiar with, please look into, and we can cover that in the deep dive as well. And then automation. I mentioned CI/CD before, and API. So there's a new API that came out for org workspaces within Power BI. I don't know if we'll cover that, but it's something fun that I'm going to look into as well. It's a REST API. And then exam prep tips and learning. So a bunch of the same stuff, right? So nothing really new as it relates to DP600. All of the same rules apply. It's just the content is different, right? It's a different platform. The content is different. We can go over that as well once we get into the deep dive. But aka.ms/dp600/prepare. Make sure that you go to that if this is something that you're interested in. And then I want to leave some time for any questions from anybody. Does anybody have anything that we didn't cover today that you want to make sure we explicitly cover in the deep dives once we schedule those? And again, those will be in the next couple of weeks because you have to get your submissions in to get discounted exam vouchers. So anything. Does anybody go off mute, put in the chat, and if there's nothing, we can go ahead and end it. I know we're a little bit over. Going once, twice, Sold. Nothing. All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for attending this study group. Initially, we wanted to have one, but then we saw the content. We're like, hey, we need to have multiple sessions of this. So be on the lookout for those invites, and we hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we will talk soon. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.